This family didn't lock their doors until it was too late. A stalker was inside their house for months, filming, touching their things, leaving messages in places no stranger could reach. The final proof he left behind? A photo taken inside their home that no one can explain. Watch until the end, you'll never leave a window open again. It was just another Tuesday in the quiet town of Dunsfield, the kind of place where kids rode bikes through dusty trails and left their doors unlocked at night. But for 13-year-old Clara McMillan, that illusion of safety shattered in an instant. It began with a rustle, barely a whisper, just outside her bedroom window. First, she thought it was a raccoon, then maybe the wind. But when it came again the next night and the night after that, she stopped pretending. Something or someone was watching her. Clara never told her parents. In her mind, it sounded crazy. A scratching at the window, a faint cough beneath the eaves. Nothing tangible, nothing that could be proven. But still, she stopped opening the curtains at night. She started sleeping with the lamp on. And every evening, just after sunset, she would hear footsteps outside, slow, deliberate, pacing along the perimeter of their small white house like someone circling prey. One evening, Clara sat alone in the living room while her parents were at a school board meeting. The house was dark except for the flickering light of the television. That's when she heard the front door creak. Not a knock, not a rattle, just the unmistakable groan of hinges yielding to weight. Her breath caught in her throat. Her father had locked that door. He always did. Heart hammering, Clara crept to the hallway. The darkness now no longer empty but thick with the presence of something she couldn't see. She dared to glance at the door. It was open just a crack, but enough to let in the cold outside air and the faint, iron-scented scent of something unfamiliar. She slammed it shut and threw the bolt across. Then, for the first time, she ran to the neighbor's house. The Harrisons. Told them someone was trying to break in. Told them she wasn't sure if she imagined it or not. James Harrison, the father, didn't ask questions. He walked her back with a flashlight, checked every door and window, and waited with her until her parents returned. Nothing had been taken. Nothing had been moved. But from that night forward, Clara was never the same. Days passed, then weeks, and the unease didn't fade. Instead, it deepened. Her mother, Abigail McMillan, began to notice how jumpy her daughter had become. She would flinch when the phone rang. She wouldn't leave for school without checking all the locks, twice. At first, Abigail and her husband, Thomas McMillan, assumed it was anxiety, teenage nerves. They even considered therapy, until the letters started arriving. They were folded neatly, always slipped into the mailbox late at night. Never stamped, never addressed. Just a single sheet of paper, always typed in bold block font. The first one read, "You look lovely in blue." Clara had worn a blue dress the day before. The second note came 2 days later. "You shouldn't sleep with the light off." The third, "I know you don't like tomatoes." That's when the McMillans finally went to the police. Officer Henry Collins reviewed the notes carefully, offered them standard advice: install a camera, change the locks, keep the girl indoors. But there was no real evidence to act on. No fingerprints, no witnesses, no crime committed. The most they could do was file a report and promise to patrol the area more frequently. Clara stopped going to school altogether. She was homeschooled from the kitchen table while a new alarm system blinked quietly behind her. But none of it helped, because the next letter was different. It arrived in a red envelope, the only one that ever did. And all it said was, "I'm coming inside tonight." That was the night the McMillans didn't sleep. They stayed in the living room together, every light on, a baseball bat in Thomas McMillan's hand. But no one came. Nothing happened. It was as if the sender knew the family would be waiting and decided to wait too. 3 weeks passed. The letters stopped. The footsteps ceased. For a moment, they believed it was over. Clara laughed again. The curtains stayed open. But darkness has a way of disguising itself in calm. And it came again, not in a letter this time, but in the form of a phone call. At 3:11 a.m., the house phone rang. Thomas answered groggily. A man's voice whispered, "I left you a gift in the crawl space." Then the line went dead. Thomas searched the crawlspace beneath the house the next morning. He didn't expect to find anything, but what he did find would turn his blood to ice. There, tucked into the insulation like a secret, was a collection of photographs, dozens of them, all of Clara, walking home from school, playing in the backyard, sleeping in her bed. Some were taken from outside the house, others from inside. They called the police again. Officer Collins returned, along with a detective named Sandra Powell. She examined the photos carefully, her expression darkening with every image. These weren't old. Some had been taken within the past week, which meant whoever took them still had access to the property. But the crawlspace entrance had been locked. The window frames showed no signs of forced entry. The McMillans were forced to face the terrifying truth. Someone had been inside their house, without their knowledge, for weeks. Detective Powell ordered surveillance cameras to be installed around the property. Officers were assigned to do random checks at night, but fear had already sunk too deep. Clara started sleeping in her parents' room. Abigail kept a sharp object beneath her pillow, and Thomas rarely left for work without making sure someone was home. Then came the final straw. One night, as Clara got up to get a glass of water, she noticed something odd about the family photo wall in the hallway. One of the frames had been changed. The picture that used to show her first birthday now showed something else. Her sleeping in bed, the photo clearly taken the night before. The frame was locked from the inside. No broken glass, no smudge on the wall. Whoever did it had come and gone like a whisper. They called the police again, but by the time authorities arrived, the photo was gone, the frame empty. They found no prints, no signs of forced entry. Detective Powell, for the first time, admitted what they had feared all along. This wasn't random. It was obsession. Clara was sent to live with her aunt in Connecticut while the investigation deepened. The house was swept. Bug detectors were used. Hidden cameras installed. But the stalker, whoever he was, had gone completely silent. Weeks passed, then months. Clara started to smile again, began to believe, foolishly perhaps, that the worst was over. But evil rarely ends in silence. Sometimes it waits. One evening, back in Dunsfield, the McMillans were hosting neighbors for dinner. Abigail had just brought out dessert when a knock came at the front door. Thomas opened it, expecting a late arrival. Instead, there was a package. No sender. Just a plain brown box with the words, "For Clara," written in red. He opened it with a sharp object. Inside was a single Polaroid picture. It showed Clara, curled up on her aunt's couch in Connecticut. Behind her, in the reflection of the television screen, was the faint silhouette of a man. Watching, the FBI was called in. Witness protection was discussed, but they were too late. That night, Clara disappeared. Her aunt reported that she had gone out to walk the dog and never came back. The leash was found half a block away. There were no screams, no signs of struggle, no witnesses, only a note on the doormat, "Alone at last." The case made national headlines. Clara McMillan's disappearance launched one of the largest child searches in state history. Psychics offered help. Bounty hunters got involved. But no leads ever panned out. For over 2 years, the case went cold, until a truck driver named Marvin Ellis stopped to relieve himself behind an abandoned gas station near the Arizona border. There, half buried in sand, was a rusted metal box. Inside it were 3 Polaroids, all of Clara, all recent. One showed her tied to a chair. The second showed her sitting on a bed, holding up a newspaper from 2 weeks earlier. The third showed a man's shadow holding what looked like a sharp object, just out of frame. The photos were rushed to the FBI. Forensics confirmed they were real. Clara was alive, or at least had been alive within the last month. The coordinates on the back of one photo led to an old cabin in the woods, but it was empty. All that remained was a mattress, some burnt rope, and the final message scratched into the wall. "You should have listened. They never found Clara." To this day, the identity of her stalker remains a mystery. Her family moved away from Dunsfield and changed their names. The house was demolished, but the story remains a legend in the town. A reminder that sometimes the monsters aren't in the woods or under the bed, but in plain sight. That evil doesn't need a reason, and that once it sets its eyes on you, it never looks away. And so, if you ever hear a soft rustling at your window at night, if you find a photo in a frame that wasn't there before, or a letter slipped under your door that you don't remember receiving, ask yourself, are you really alone? Because Clara Macmillan once thought she was, and she was wrong. Now here's the question. If Clara Macmillan was never found, do you think she's still alive somewhere? Or do you believe the man watching her was someone nobody ever suspected? Could something like this happen in your neighborhood? We want to know what you think. Drop your theories in the comments. And if this story gave you chills, subscribe because we're just getting started.